Travis had been thinking about all of the lessons he had been absorbing under Tiber's tutelage. Of the past 7 lessons, he would not be able to choose one as his favorite. They were all wonderful, and he didn't know if that was because he was a good student, or if Tiber was an exceptional teacher. He suspected a little of both, but of course, knew that Tiber should get all the credit. It certainly helped that the unique way that Tiber arrived for a lesson helped put Travis in the mood to listen. It always worked, and then Tiber always made Travis seem special, even by the way he dressed to create a certain mood, and set the atmosphere just right to make the lesson fun. Well, today seemed like a good day to have a lesson, and he was beginning to understand that his desire to have one was enough to lure Tiber into setting a time and place to meet. Travis was trying to come up with a perfect place to arrange for a visit by Tiber. He had decided that a meeting in the Jacques Marchais Museum of Tibetan Art on Staten Island would be ideal. He had been there in the past with his parents and loved the place. It has the feeling of a real Himalayan monastery, which automatically sets a perfect mood of introspection and reverence. They were having a special meeting of a club called the Untapped New York Insiders, and his parents were longtime members, so he would hitch a ride with them this Saturday morning. The cool air was quite crisp on the hilltop and hillsides where the museum was nestled among the dense trees and shrubbery. There were many pathways and steep stairs that led through the grounds. Most people visiting were engrossed in seeing the Himalayan treasures on display in the various museum rooms. His parents were among them, and they had met many new friends sharing the same interests. Travis excused himself and told them that he wanted to explore the gardens. They understood and were not a bit surprised, as nature was always his passion, and they were well aware of his penchant for being alone at times. They did not know of his meetings with anyone, let alone a discarnate being like Tiber. Travis walked down a curved set of steps that led to the lower gardens. He had taken a bottle of Pepsi with him and took his time descending the steps while admiring and smelling the fragrance emanating from vegetation along the way. A squirrel or two would scamper across the steps and pathways, and of course, Travis expected one of them to morph into Tiber at any moment, but it didn't happen. He was surprised that there were no people in this lower part of the gardens, but he was happy, because he loved solitude. After a few minutes of walking, he found a large boulder to sit on in a very quiet glade. Travis was very entranced with this atmosphere at this moment in time and just sort of zoned out. But when he looked up into the greenery of the garden around him, his vision suddenly faded into an ink-black void. At first, Travis was frightened, but he soon understood that something spiritual was taking place, so he relaxed. Then in the middle of the darkness, a silver glow slowly appeared. Then it was followed by the figure of a monk that manifested a spiritual aura, and generated emanations of glowing orbs of energy. Travis was enthralled to witness this apparition emerging out of this black environment. Then as quickly as this scene appeared, the blackness faded, and the hillside greenery again took its place. Travis immediately whispered,
"Tiber?"
The Tibetan monk image faded, and in its place, standing in front of Travis, was a very muscular-looking middle-aged professor, dressed in jeans and a multicolored t-shirt. Travis glanced down at Tiber's feet, and suddenly a pair of leather sandals appeared. Travis then looked back up into Tiber's eyes and saw a very large smile greeting him.
This is a very, very nice venue you created for us to have a lesson in.
I thought you would like it. I get the impression that you are getting harder to please, and I have to work very hard to conjure up something I think you would like.
Well, you did it up nicely this time. I like the greenery and the cool, crispy temperature, and I always enjoy taking on a new persona. Don't you think that I looked great as a Tibetan monk?
You are the best, and I'll have this image ingrained in my mind forever, but I still like you better as the professor you are meant to be.
I'm not meant to be just a professor, although I am proud of it at present. Remember, I have been in many incarnations, and I wouldn't dare tell you some of the personas I have lived. I even shock myself when I think of some of them.
Well, please don't share those shock personas with me. I have problems enough just accepting you as you are appearing to me as a normal occurrence, but I do finally accept those appearances over time.
I'm very gratified that you do, my earnest scholar. I am hopeful that you will absorb what I have to offer, and that you will turn out to be among the best of my students.
I'll try, Tiber. I'll certainly try my best.
Tiber smiled and then said,
Great. And now let's get on with today's lesson. I believe you have requested that we discuss why we are living in this realm, which I always refer to as the obstructed realm or obstructed universe.
When did I request that subject? I don't remember asking for that.
What kind of a teacher would I be if I couldn't anticipate what you wanted to or needed to learn? Do you not want to understand why you were sent into this realm?
Just go ahead. If I have learned anything, it's that it is futile to question you too much.
That's not true. I desire your input, but we seem to be getting off to a difficult start today.
Okay, Tiber, wipe out every negative thing you think I said to you or about you, and we will both put on happy, non-negative attitudes, and get on with learning about living in this realm. Which I am convinced that it causes us to be a bit negative from time to time.
Tiber just smiled at Travis because he loved this boy's attitude even when it was not totally upbeat or cool. He continued.
Okay, we have already discussed many times before this lesson that the reason we have been created by Supreme Consciousness is to develop into a mature and creative soul with unique individuality. This takes a lot of time and considerable experience to accomplish, and it also involves a lot of effort on our part. Do you remember and agree with the summation of those lessons?
I do.
Good. Now you must understand that the most effective environment in which to experience and learn to do or be anything has to occur within an effective venue. It wouldn't make much sense to learn to be a doctor or nurse by hanging out in an ice cream parlor. The more effective the setting, the more likely it is that you will be able to see and understand what it is you want to become and to take on the proper mindset of being a doctor or nurse.
Okay. But it would seem to me that the universe that we find ourselves embedded in is perhaps a bit of overkill. There are so many elements that make up the earth. There's the land and seas, the air, the stars, and on and on. Do we really need all that just to learn how to be a better person?
Well, perhaps not to just make you a better person, but certainly for a more creative one. All of what you mentioned are superb testing grounds for creativity. Every day you can walk on the ground or swim in the water and see more creativity than you are likely to be able to imagine on your own. And that is the point. You continue to learn by the immersion effect. When you stand almost anywhere and gaze at the scene spread out before you, the view teaches you something of value. Whether you are seeing a magnificent one, such as a forest leading to grandiose snow-capped mountain tops merging with the azure sky and fluffy white clouds, or being presented with a drab, messy alleyway in a rundown part of town. In both, you are being offered a story of creation, with one of them being pleasant and the other perhaps a very depressing and dreary lesson. You are always invited to analyze what you see and then come up with your own conclusion regarding the value of what you are seeing. But in both cases, you are maturing in your range of experiences, which will help you be a more complete and creative individual. Understood so far?
How could I not?
That's an amazing critique. It wouldn't hurt you to offer a better review for my offerings, would it?
Sorry.
Well, let's get on with it anyway, my unappreciative student. I am trying to encourage you to picture this in your mind. The entire obstructed universe, or call it a realm if you please, has been created by Supreme Consciousness or God, also if you please. It was created in such a way as to provide the maximum number and types of challenges that will allow all new souls to eventually evolve into more mature creations. This was to be accomplished over many and varied reincarnations or life experiences if you prefer. This process continued with the soul manifesting itself by growing into a progressively more complete supreme consciousness, created from uncountable singular creative souls with their own separate individualities, constituted from separate and unique life experiences.
Travis clapped his hands together.
Now that was a perfect explanation. You can't imagine how clear that picture is in my mind now.
And you can't imagine the methods I could use to punch you into a spiritual tomorrow. But I will resist the urge because somehow or the other, I continue to like you, but I can't wait for you to evolve into at least an old teenager with a testosterone level that you can control.
Travis smiled and retorted.
And I can't wait for you to control your lack of confidence in being able to cope with a student who has a sense of humor.
Tiber smiled back.
Having survived the interruption and obviously winning that repartee, I will continue with my brilliant dissertation. Now, once a new soul has been placed within a body in this earthly realm, it has to spend a certain amount of time just settling in. Our realm, with all its obstructions, is a strange place to find yourself, and for a spiritually logical reason. Non-interference within your memory is important, with very little in the way of instincts or past knowledge and experiences embedded into a new soul for a new life experience. Instincts are reserved for non-sentient creatures, such as most animals, as they don't require this type of evolutionary growth. A new baby just reacts for quite a while, but there is a lot of learning going on of both a physical and mental nature within that process. A baby just rolls with the flow and quite quickly begins to learn a language, try crawling and walking, respond to the needs and desires for food, and on and on. We look at all of this as just a process of growing up, and it is. Still, more importantly, it is a process of evolving from a spiritual existence to an itty baby existence, and continues onward to grow into a mature human and ultimately to return to a spiritual realm, once again full of new experiences. This process is repeated many times because it is such an enriching journey to evolve into a more mature individual soul force.
A short time passed while Travis thought about those words. Then Travis looked into Tiber's eyes and, this time with considerable sincerity, said,
That was indeed a great explanation, and I feel that I can actually perceive what is taking place in my soul's growth, but I do have a huge question. Why was it necessary for Supreme Consciousness to include some really harsh lessons for us to experience? I'm thinking of wars, torture, losing your loved ones, living with excruciating pain, extreme thirst and starvation, and much more. I'm particularly mystified that small children are subjected to these afflictions.
Listen, my boy, these are issues that we all have to experience. They make you understand that some things are unfair, and that we, as new or even older souls living in this obstructed environment, must try to do something to alleviate them for ourselves and for others as well. If we don't learn to grapple with those things, and learn to overcome them, souls cannot progress. You would be surprised at how long a process can be for certain souls to understand and attempt to rectify those issues. The essence of all learning is this: you must experience something to truly understand it, and then choose a good way over the worst way to handle those issues when they occur. And then you have to enact methods to work with them to avoid or deal with them in the future. But to do all this, you must understand that you have to be hungry to realize how satisfying it is to eat. You must suffer ill health to value good health. If you don't love someone or something, it is impossible to know how important having and dealing with that love is. It is also valuable to understand that hating is a destructive force, but here again, you have to experience it to know it and learn how to avoid that mindset.
I think we have discussed some of these things in the past. But I still am mystified that it seems that certain horrible things are far too intense to bear, and I wonder if they have to be that difficult for us to learn. Why are these terrible things needed, and why must we tolerate them?
You are closing in on the essence of this lesson.
Is there any limit to the specifics and the intensity of things we may have to learn and then deal with?
The short answer is no. How would that be possible if we are to evolve and mature into our destiny of becoming one with Supreme Consciousness? However, some of us can actually learn from the experiences of others, or even to turn a minor incident into a knowledge of what the more intensive experience would be, and then determine how to deal with it. No doubt, actually experiencing being burned alive results in the knowledge that you should avoid fire in the future. But you can neatly avoid doing that by paying attention to the lesson of letting a candle burn your finger and allow that to lead you to the same conclusion. That is a doable technique for most souls. However, some will actually require being tossed into the flame to get the lesson down pat. The fortunate thing about learning these lessons is that they don't last long, no matter what, where, or how long the learning experience occurs. Remember, we reside in infinity, so any experience is not going to be more than a blip in your total existence, no matter how intensive or how long that incident lasts.
If you say so, but I still think that a lot of people have to suffer more than many others, and many of them in some pretty terrible ways. Think about parents losing their children to tragedy, and I can't stand the thought of people receiving long-term suffering and torture in prisons, and there are many more torments beyond understanding or perhaps even description.
That's understandable that you would feel that way, and I am proud of you for thinking that way, but part of the answer I will have to give you is not going to comfort you very much. But it is this. Most of the scheduled difficult lessons are assigned by teacher souls that assist you in your growth. Many of the more difficult tasks are selected by you while you are in the transition realm and anticipating a new incarnation within the obstructed realms. Some are based on karma, which is defined as this description taken from Wikipedia on the web. Karma means action, work, or deed. It also refers to the spiritual principle of cause and effect, where the intent and actions of an individual influence the future of that individual. Good intent and good deeds contribute to good karma and happy rebirths, while bad intent and bad deeds contribute to bad karma and bad rebirths.
I've heard of karma, but it didn't make much sense to me when I did, and only makes a little more sense to me now after you explained it. I guess I am so afraid and wary of terrible things happening to me and other people, I don't want to give what you have described any credence. I find it hard to believe that God or Supreme Consciousness could allow such things to happen to us, or at least some of us.
I am aware that you and others do not want to believe that Supreme Consciousness or God would allow horrendous things to happen to newly created souls. Well, remember that obstructed realms such as this one here on earth are not what you would call heaven. These realms are not designed to be that way. It is a venue for learning and assisting in your personal evolution. Wonderful things are supposed to happen here, and terrible things are also supposed to occur, and all manner of things impact you in between. It is a perfect locale to learn that allows you to begin to understand the difference between each and every experience and ultimately how to react to them.
But what did you mean when you said that individual souls often selected terrible experiences for themselves? Why would they do that?
They selected it because they needed it for some reason known to themselves. Souls made those decisions to place themselves in reincarnation where those experiences were likely to occur, and they were aware that it was a brief occurrence when seen from an immortality point of view. Like a baby who is uncomfortable because of a wet diaper, which to him or her is horrible, it will soon be over. But the fact that the baby will eventually get a change of diapers is essential to its mental growth in the long run. You are not aware of it, but you have had some pretty horrendous experiences in previous incarnations. I am aware of them from my current perspectives, but you are not from yours. But you will become aware of what you have experienced when you leave here and enter the transitional realm where those reviews take place. All of us have had incidents when we have been thrown into the burning flames, to use that analogy, because we wouldn't learn a lesson the easy way.
Well, I am still scared of being tossed into the fire, so I am going to pay full attention to every little lesson that I am offered, including the ones you give me.
I believe you, and I am pleased because I know it is a true resolve on your part. This was a short lesson for a complicated subject, but I think you will take what I have given you and run with it from here on out. Keep your focus well honed on what is happening around you and learn. Learn and learn some more. It may seem overly simple to say, but each and every time you use that focus, you will absorb something. This realm is the best classroom there is, but like all others, you have to pay attention. So with that, I have to go and leave you to your endeavors, my boy. Come give me a hearty hug.
Tiber sat down, Buddha style on a nearby stone bench. Travis could see that the golden glow was already starting, so he jumped off the boulder he was sitting on and embraced Tiber while he still seemed solid. He sensed the pure spirituality that penetrated his soul and illuminated it. Travis looked into his teacher's eyes and said, "I love you, Tiber." Tiber smiled and replied, "I love you more," and with that, he dissolved, surrounded by a most beautiful emanation of light. Travis stood there and was sad that his teacher had gone but knew that he would return when he was wanted or needed. He then heard his mother call from the Tibetan Museum.
"Travis, we are ready to go. Come on back up to the museum terrace."
And with that, Travis, being elated in his heart, bounded up the steps. The still full bottle of Pepsi was in his hand, and he joined his parents for the ride home. Did you who read episode number 8 expect the lesson on realms was as interesting as I did? Tiber explained that there were many different realms but broken down into specific primary categories. There were the obstructed realms, like the one we reside in now. Here, experiences are acquired by each soul reacting to or against obstructions within the realms. There are unlimited numbers of these realms and endless expressions of life within them. Then there are the transition realms, where no obstructions and physicality exist. These realms are resided in by souls wishing to review and contemplate their previous existences in the obstructed realms. They will determine their stage of spiritual evolution and select different reincarnations into the obstructed realms if needed. There are many other realms I will not detail here, but they all prepare each soul for an eventual return to the creative source Tiber refers to as supreme consciousness. It was an intriguing episode that should make everyone think about where we are heading. But let's also think about episode number 9, where Travis will learn more about spiritual travel within the spiritual timeline. I am positive that you will like this one very much. Please visit our website, theemeraldcrystal.com, to see, read, or hear more of our literary offerings. You may purchase our spiritual thriller novels, Quest for the Emerald Crystal Book Number 1, Spiritual Warriors in the Bahamas, or Quest for the Emerald Crystal Book Number 2, Spiritual Warriors in Belize, and Quest for the Emerald Crystal Book Number 3, Spiritual Warriors in the Caribbean, within the website or on Amazon.com.